I'm here today with Brian Slagel of Metal Blade Records to talk about Metal Massacre. It comes out, or the re-edition comes out April 22nd. How's it going with you?
Good, thanks. How are you?
I'm great. Thank you for taking the time to chat about this re-release. And let's go back to 4 years ago. Did you ever think that what you started back then would lead you to where you are today?
Oh, no, I don't think any of us back then in the early 80s thought that anything was going to happen this long into the future. I think we are just kind of all looking at, doing whatever we could at the time to help the music that we were really into be as successful as it could be. But never, I don't think in a million years any of us ever thought we'd be doing this long into it.
So what's harder, to get the label off the ground or to stay on top of the mountain?
Well, that's a good question. They both have their own things. I mean, honestly, getting it off the ground I wasn't really even thinking about that. I was just, I just love the music and I was just trying to help out as many bands as I could. So it just kind of evolved normally, I guess. But, trying to stay successful is, it's tricky. But I think that, what we've always tried to do over the years is just try to be as forward thinking as we can in terms of what the bands we sign and what we're looking for. And also just, we all still love the music. I mean, everybody that works at the label are all first and foremost metal fans, including me. And, that's kind of what drives us to try to do things. And I think we're just lucky enough that the stuff that we like, other people seem to like too. So that helps.
You mentioned helping the bands. Was that the main criteria when you were choosing the songs to put on Metal Massacre, or you had more of a game plan or an outline of what you wanted that release to be like?
Oh, I had no outline or idea or anything. I didn't even put that out to really start a record label. That was the farthest thing from my thoughts. I just was, this is obviously 1982, way before the internet, way before anything. And, there was this metal scene in LA, and nobody outside of LA knew that it existed, and would probably never know that it existed if something didn't come around to try to give it some exposure. So that was the idea to put the record out. Was like, I was working at a record store, so I knew the various distributors, and I said, hey, if I put together a compilation album of local LA heavy metal bands, would you guys sell it? And they said, sure. So I just scraped up as much money as I could to make some copies of that, and just to get the word out that, hey, there are these bands in LA that are actually good. Because if you're, like I said, if you're not in LA, you would never know it existed, and there weren't any other real record labels at the time, and the major labels could care less. So that was the only way to really get some information out and try to help out the bands.
Well, when you reached out to the bands to be on that compilation, what was the overwhelming response? Was it positive? Or they're like,
yeah,
who are you?
I mean, at the time in that, 1982, to be on an actual record was a huge thing for any of these bands. So everybody immediately said yes. The only two bands that didn't was Motley Crue, who were originally going to be on it. But at that point, they had put out their own record and were starting to do pretty well. So they didn't really need to be on it. And then the other band was Merciful Fate, who I was a big fan of and wanted to get them on there, but they had already signed a deal with a label in Holland. So those were the two, but everybody else immediately said, of course.
When you look at a song like Hit the Lights on that compilation, who gained the most by having that track there? Metallica or you, in terms of what you wanted that record to represent?
I don't know. I mean, it depends on who you ask, I guess. I think if you ask the Metallica guys, they say it helped Metallica more than it helped me. But I mean, look, I'm just happy to play a small part in the history of that band. And I mean, certainly things would have been a lot different for all of us, I guess, if they weren't on that record, probably. But as luck would have it, they made it.
Is there another song outside of Hit the Lights on that compilation that has a special place in your heart in terms not only of what it represented then, but what has represented it since?
I mean, honestly, I'm happy with all the songs on that record, just because, pretty much all of those bands went on to have some sort of success. And I don't know that would have happened if that record didn't come out. So, and again, my whole thing in doing this, it's still doing it today, really, is just to turn people on to music that I liked. I mean, that was the most fun thing about working at the record stores. people would come in and they'd be metalheads and they say, hey, what should I be listening to? I said, oh, well, here's the new Accept, or here's the new Merciful Fate, or here's the new Iron Maiden. And, and getting them to listen to it, really like it was super fun for me. So that was really the whole impetus for doing the record in the first place. I was happy to see that, pretty much all those bands had some sort of level of success after that, which is cool.
I'm sure you had some limitations in terms of how many songs you could have because of vinyls, printing, all of that stuff. Was there any band out there that heard about what you were doing and tried to get on it, but there was just no room?
No, in fact, there's 2 Malice songs on that record because I didn't have enough songs for the whole thing. So no, because I mean, again, the metal scene in LA at that point was very, very small. And, I hadn't, there wasn't a Metal Blade yet, or there wasn't a Metal Massacre yet. So after the first record came out, then all of a sudden there were quite a few bands that were interested in being on the next records. And then all of a sudden I was getting, tapes from, for example, the band Trauma in San Francisco, which was Cliff Burton's first band. And, other people had seen or heard about the compilation and thought, hey, this is cool, we want to be on it. But that first record, no, it was I barely had enough songs to fit. So
the thing that surprised me the most about this re-release is that you're not putting together a Metal Blade hockey jersey to go with it. What happened there?
Well, you never know. We're still working on some merchandise, so I'm trying to think if we've done a Metal Massacre hockey jersey. I know we've done T-shirts and sweatshirts and that stuff, but I don't know if we did I don't think we've done a hockey jersey, so I'll have to add that to the list. So thank you for that.
Yeah, I'm surprised. I know you're a huge hockey fan. I'm Canadian, so we have that in common. And when I was looking at all the things that are available, the vinyls and everything, I was like, "Whoa, no hockey jersey? So somebody's missing the boat here."
Right? Yeah, I mean, this day and age, the one issue that you do have with a lot of this stuff is just getting the product because of all the supply chain issues and those sort of things. So, but yeah, we'll get to that. Like I said, I'll add that to the list.
What are you most proud of everything that you have achieved from those humble early beginnings 40 years down the road to where you are today?
Oh, I think, just really being able to help bands out and be able to help them, make music and actually have a life in music. I'm, super happy we have, bands like, Cannibal Corpse and Monomarth and, Fate's Warning Armored Saint, who basically have their whole careers have been with us, and they've all gone on to quite a degree of success. And it's fun for me to see, because, all the bands are all, we're all friends at this point. So it's fun to see my friends who are in bands, be successful enough to be able to make a living off of music and, fulfill their dreams more or less. And that's the most satisfying thing to me, is to see the success that all of these bands have that we've played a little role in.
When you were looking at a way to celebrate this 40-year anniversary, was the re-release always the first thing on your mind, or you thought, okay, let's put something new together, let's reinvent the wheel and do a new Metal Massacre?
No, I've always wanted to redo this first Metal Massacre. It's always kind of been on my list of things that I wanted to do because, we lost the rights to it 35 years ago. But I always thought it was going to be a nightmare to try to put together. I wasn't sure if all the bands would be into it and, getting rights and all these sort of things. I was really afraid to kind of reach out and see if it's possible. I just thought it would be a lot of work. But for the 40th, it just felt right that we should do that because it's the beginning of the label and it's been 40 years. So why not try to do that? And I literally took an afternoon, maybe 2 hours, and reached out to all the bands, and immediately everybody said yes. I was like, whoa, it was literally done in an afternoon. I was really blown away by how cool everybody has been about it and how easy it was to put together. The whole project from beginning to end has been super easy and really fun. So it's been good. And unfortunately, there's not a lot of them left. We sold out all of the pre-orders that we did, and Metallica sold out their pre-order in about an hour. But it is going to be in stores. So if you're lucky enough, hopefully your local record store will have some copies.
I have only a couple more questions for you. And one of the things I want to ask you is that growing up outside of North America, I grew up in Portugal. Metal Blade, as a young metalhead, like you said earlier, no internet, nothing like that. Metal Blade was almost always to me a symbol of quality. So I could almost pick up any record that had the Metal Blade logo on it, and I knew I was going to get a good metal album. Are you aware of that standard of quality that you've created, not just for yourself, but for the business in general?
Yeah, I mean, look, obviously it makes me super happy to hear that. I've heard that a lot, obviously. And again, I think it just goes down to two, two main things. Number one, again, I'm lucky that everybody else seems to have my taste in music. So if I like something, other people like it. And, the other thing is we really, over all these years, have worked very, very hard to try to do the right thing for the bands and the fans. And because we love the music so much, we really care about how it looks and how it sounds, and all those things are very important to me. So I'm happy to obviously hear all that sort of stuff, because it means all the hard work that we do to make it as good as we think it could be, other people seem to like too. So yeah, that's great. And then it also leads to being able to expose more bands, because if more people, like you said, if you see the Metal Blade logo, and it was the same with other Combat and Megaforce too, that you see those logos on there, it's like, hey, I know this is going to be good, so I'm going to give it a shot, which is great, because a lot of bands might not have had that shot.
In the 40 years that you've been doing this, what, in your opinion, has changed the most in the business that perhaps has hurt it the most as well?
Well, it's so changing and evolving all the time. And one thing I learned early on is, I made a million mistakes, especially starting out, because I had no idea what I was doing. But you have to learn from those mistakes. And I think, we've done a really good job at trying to stay ahead of the curve. And, anytime something comes along that might not be easy or difficult, for example, like the file sharing stuff, instead of condemning it and using it as a bad thing, we tried to do whatever we could to use it to our benefit. And the weird thing about music now is that probably more than ever, anybody can listen to anything. Like before obviously the internet and this stuff, you had bought a record and it might be good, it might not be good, but now you can listen to everything ahead of time. And I think that exposure to fans makes a lot of these bands bigger. Do I think Amon Amarth would be as big as they are if it wasn't for the internet? The fact that people can say, "Oh, I've heard about Amon Amarth. I can go on and listen to a song and see if I like it, and then support it." And we've been lucky that I think that's been the biggest challenge, is as we've kind of moved from physical to the digital part of it, is how do you get people to engage and support the music and the bands? And we've been really lucky that the metal community in general is super supportive, and always has been super supportive of all the bands. When the whole pandemic thing started and bands couldn't tour, that that's a big part of everybody's lives, obviously, and a big part of the money making for all of these bands. But what we noticed at Metal Blade, and I know the other labels did too, that anything we made, like CD, vinyl, anything, sold out immediately. All the bands sold out all of their merch. People were streaming like they've never streamed before, all to help out the bands. And that it really helped, because I don't know that a lot of these bands would have survived if it wasn't for how great the fans were. And so these are always there's always a new challenge out there. And I think we're trying to look at it as, okay, what can we do to make whatever the situation benefit us and benefit the bands? So it's kind of evolving, it's always tough. So it's hard to say one thing, because you've solved one problem and then there's 5 more that you have to deal with. So.
Well, Brian, thank you very much for your time. I know you're a busy guy, so thank you very much for taking the time to chat with me today about Metal Massacre, out April 22nd on Metal Blade Records. Thank you very much. All the best to you.
Thank you so much. Thanks for having me anytime. I appreciate it.
All right. Take care, man. All the best.
All right. Thanks. Have a good one.